You approach your art, your painting, differently than I think most people do, who call themselves an artist or even are hobbyist as artist. In that to you it seems to entail the word active imagination. Could you explain something about the process of active imagination? How you came to it and how you learned more about it?
Well, active imagination is an approach that Jung and many of those early analysts found so helpful. And that would be in contrast to just passive imagination, where you just dream and dream and dream, would be an active engagement with a symbol, say a dream symbol say if you had a dwarf, for instance, that emerges out of the shadows, it is trying to tell you something, that one would actively, and the activity being engage the ego, consciously engage the ego to see what does that symbol have to say to you. And it's certainly a very irrational undertaking, and more than not, if one is just writing, the critic will be not far away saying, "Oh, what blarney, or you're just making that up." But the wisdom of the unconscious, when the ego takes the active responsibility to reach out and engage a symbol that has arisen in your unconscious, is by Dr. Ponfranz says it is more powerful than just a dream. And I have found that so. And in my painting, instead of the kind of intellectual writing on it, I would approach with some image that had been very powerful or that I hadn't understood, and would first try to sketch that. What does it want to say? And very often it would change, and it would go off in a different direction, and allow myself to actively stay involved with that. And so in that way, my relationship to those paintings is, my God, I could never do that. But something was there that wanted to be said, and I was sort of the vehicle. To let your ego really engage and take the responsibility to try to bridge the split between the inner and the outer world. And either write it down, or paint it, or do some people dance it? I don't know how that works. But that instead of just turning yourself over to the unconscious as you are in a dream, and it comes to you spontaneously, and then you do serve it a bit if you record it, and if people don't record it, it just flies away. But this thing, that the more one engages that, the more chance there is of integrating that into the conscious personality. I heard, and this probably isn't scientific, but it's what I got out of it. Someone was talking about the experience of a dream that was reaching from the right hemisphere of the brain to the left hemisphere of the brain, and how there'd been a spark thrown across the corpus callosum. And I thought, that's really interesting, because if you think of primitives and how they built some way to reach across a chasm, would that they would first throw a vine or something across. But then I thought, but then if you throw another vine, you've started a bridge. And so that every effort beyond, say, the first writing of that dream, whatever you did, whether you painted it, sketched it, wrote about it, or whatever, would be bit by bit how you might be able to bridge that split. That split in our own psyche, where the head has dominated our historical connection with the earth of our primitive ancestors, which would be the archetypes.
The title of your book is The Serpent and the Cross, Healing the Split Through Active Imagination. Could you say something more about how you experienced this split?
Well, I could say for myself, having that oversensitivity to my own personal split between the conventional patriarchal Christian development and that natural connection to the archetypal depths was what prompted me into this search for this desperate search just to stay alive by healing that split, because the consequences were so severe. But we live in a cultural split. Our culture is so split off from the archetype of Mother Nature, and has been projected into material things of money, cars, houses, all the materialism, and has lost the spiritual soul of nature within the world in which we live. So that that is a split that of course, was necessary for the beginning of consciousness would be to split off from that eternal return of nature. But it has gone so far over into the management of science and technology as the ego's management of the world that the soul is crying out for a better balance between spirit and nature. And I think it's what you deal with when you talk about the next millennia will be with an emphasis on the feminine. To my understanding of that, it will be the emergence of the feminine spirit, again, having to be recognized and more integrated if our world is to survive.
The title of your prologue to the book is The Inner Journey. When did it appear to you as though this has been an inner journey that you're on?
I think with the first introduction to Jung's ideas, it was as if a new chapter of life had opened up, and that would be an inner journey, rather than outer demands that were just imposed on me.
First paintings, first dreams, first quests out into the world are always so very, very important. And I think that your first painting is very, very telling, very, very special, very powerful. Could you describe to me something about how you experienced this first painting?
Well, how I got started, even to thinking of utilizing paintings as a container for the material that was happening to me, was when I did this first little still life, which I'd never done any painting before. And I did it just as a kind of playful challenge. Somebody said, see what you can do. And I thought, well, you know, that's not bad. And that led then to starting the first archetypal painting, to utilize that as a way of containing the inner struggle that was going on.
Did you choose the particular objects that are in this composition?
You know, I don't even remember doing this now, except that it was there, it had my name on it, and I thought, it's not bad.
So your very first painting that you consider as part of this series says to me a lot. How does it speak to you?
I think there was really the attempt to formulate what the growing awareness of just exactly what I was challenged with. And that was to bring this Christian idea with all the shoulds and this sensual, at that stage of my life would have been sexual expression. How split those things were, and how that they were being lived out in a very split way. And that this was an attempt to see what exactly the archetypal form of such a split would be in our Western culture. And we all suffer that split to some degree or other. But this way to see how, for me as a woman, with this great mother as being the foundation of my being, would carry those two sides.
What I find so interesting is that the canvas itself becomes the container. It becomes the focus of wholeness. These are all
It's
the
a
different,
container.
all these elements, all of these particular images and energies are now being brought together into the same crucible.
And I think that you could say that that's true of all those paintings. It provides a container for an archetypal process that wants to be expressed.
And here you have, as part of this container, you have the mandala.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Well, have you had any experience with what was called a mandala before this? Have you
Oh,
studied
I'd heard
mandalas?
about them. I'd heard about them, and I heard about them as the Buddhist, but I never took it as it's being a process that would necessarily be helpful to myself.
So this
But
just
it's-
came out naturally? Came out
It's within the psyche. It's naturally within the psyche.
Would you say it's a language element of the psyche? The mandala?
I think it's a symbol of containment.
Well, it seems to be at the middle, in which it plays a pivotal role in bringing this split into a different place, into a transformational
Doesn't it?
existence. What about this? There's so much in your psyche that goes on in relationship to the mother.
That's right.
What kind of images is this?
Well, I think that's both personal and transpersonal. If you want to say that just historically, that I would look for that container of the mother, but also if we think of just the evolution of consciousness, it starts from the Great Mother, it starts from Earth. You would say all life starts from Mother Earth, just evolution.